The Switch has Nintendo's strongest library of any console they've done, and the following questions will help me determine whether or not you will agree with me. Why do you like Super Mario Galaxy? Do you like it because of its art, its storybook sequences? Do you like that it has 120 stars you can memorize and complete to feel like you conquered it in the end? Or do you like it because it feels fun to jump through zero gravity? I'll ask the same for Zelda. Why do you like Zelda? Is it for the timeline that tries to convince you there's some grand narrative going on? Do you like knowing you'll be able to crack a dozen or so dungeons before you're told that you're strong enough to face a great evil? Or do you just like solving whimsical little puzzles? I ask these questions because in relation to the Nintendo Switch, there's been this conversation that has persisted in the online gaming community since this console launched that I just find fascinating. Nintendo has changed, or some version of it, whether that be the Nintendo magic is gone, or the one people love saying that sounds really smart even though it's not really saying anything. Don't get me wrong, it's a good game, just not a good insert franchise here game. Despite all this discourse, Nintendo is doing better than they ever have been, selling record numbers for consoles across the Switch and even the Switch 2, and they're attaining career best critical and financial success, with many of their series selling 3 times their previous bests. So why is it that so many vocal, longtime Nintendo fans feel like they're being left behind? How can Nintendo have the reputation as the publisher who puts gameplay first for decades, yet suddenly their games are hollow, they exist without character, or they're just plain and simple shallow? Hi, my name is Christian, this is Rantable, and have Nintendo games really changed? Or is it maybe just you? Now, I'm not going to say that Nintendo makes the exact same games today that they were making well over a decade ago. As much as people love saying that the company makes the same games over and over and over again, a pivot has absolutely happened. But this pivot, I believe, is far less drastic than some people make it out to be. To see this change for what it is, we need to go back to this common held belief, this idea that Nintendo games prioritize gameplay. If you were also born at the tail end of the 1990s, you may have also grown up hearing the internet's grand opinion on Nintendo, echoing something like, love them or hate them, they care about gameplay more than anyone. From the Nintendo 64 to today with the Switch 2, whether we're talking about the GameCube, the gimmicks of the DS, or even the flop that was the Wii U, Nintendo's biggest fans, those who put up with their less favorable business practices, or even people who hate everything about Nintendo, all have this common agreed upon sentiment that when it comes to gameplay, Nintendo is supreme. So if that's true, Nintendo games are about the gameplay, what changed? Why are so many people crying out at their experience playing modern day Zelda? Or how about Mario Kart World? Hell, any Mario sports game on the Switch. Even Super Mario Odyssey and Donkey Kong Bonanza have both been raked over the coals as not being memorable compared to previous games and lacking that Nintendo magic that the company had in abundance for seemingly every generation pre-Nintendo Switch. Did Nintendo actually leave behind their gameplay focus? Is the gameplay just bad now, or worse than it was compared to the peak that you were playing from ages 8 to 15? Yes. And you have the correct opinion. There is nothing redeeming about the Switch era of Nintendo games. I'm kidding, but a lot of people genuinely feel that way and will be happy leaving the video there. To start cracking open this discourse that the modern Nintendo game left behind the core fan, I think we should focus on Zelda, the poster child for this idea that Nintendo forgot why the real fans love their games. People love blaming Breath of the Wild and its success as the reason we've seen a general pivot with Nintendo's core titles into how they deliver their gameplay. In their eyes, this pivot is drastic. Breath of the Wild marking a train, switching tracks going from one country with good story, handcrafted dungeons, and timeline-respecting lore, to an entirely different country, full of boring open worlds and bad stories. But if you ask me, the scope of this pivot is less like switching tracks and destinations on a train, and more like pivoting your position on a basketball court. You pivot to keep things unexpected and make room for a new way to achieve the thing you were trying to achieve all along. The scope of this pivot, I think, is where this disconnect is really rooted. The inability of many Nintendo fans to agree on what it is that Zelda, Mario, or really any Nintendo game does special to resonate with players, or what they're trying to set out to accomplish, has split these Nintendo enjoyers into factions almost. Some of them love the games even more than they ever have, and others view them as shells of their former selves. This is why I led the video with these questions. If you said that you like Zelda because you know you get 8 to 10, maybe 12 handcrafted dungeons to conquer, or you like Mario because you get 120 bespoke stars that have a memorable path to acquiring them as you check them off a list, providing a feeling like you're optimally spending your time, I bet you are one of the people who does not care for the direction of modern Nintendo tentpole releases. If your enjoyment of Zelda comes from the aha moment of satisfaction you get when you solve a puzzle within a dungeon or in the overworld, well, you may find yourself really enjoying modern Nintendo design. Regardless of how you perceive the scope of this pivot, undoubtedly the pivot brought with it a shift of how these feelings are delivered to the player. However, these feelings, what they inspire and spark within the player, are as true now as they were 10, 15 years ago. I grew up loving Twilight Princess. It was my favorite game of all time, but I never beat it fully until a few years ago. As a kid, I just loved exploring and existing in worlds created for video games, specifically Nintendo. Hyrule was a realized fantastical world with secrets to uncover, whether they were in dungeons, dialogues, or dreary Twilight Realm exploration. I adore Mario Sunshine because of the malleable nature of Mario's movements in the game that lets me navigate through these levels in ways that I can try and come up with. Can I make this jump? If I maneuver FLUDD in just the right way, I might be able to do it, and if I do, I feel like I'm breaking the game almost. These feelings that drew me to Twilight Princess and Mario Sunshine and kept me coming back are central to what I'm experiencing and feeling in Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Odyssey, and DK Bonanza. Discovering shrines, solving puzzles, or using Cappy to cross gaps that should feel impossible, then discovering a treasure trove of coins that does nothing other than incentivize me to keep trying platforming tricks just because I think it's fun. If I had to boil down this idea of what it is that I and so many others have found appealing about Nintendo games over the years, and is a phrase more descriptive than Nintendo gameplay good, I think it would be expression as play. Part of the reason I think this gameplay focus people talk about is so prevalent is because these games are rooted in the idea of the player expressing themselves on screen, whether it's how they move the character, choosing which directions they want to explore, what items they want to find, and their own drive to just engage with these digital worlds. Today, I think Nintendo games exist as an evolution of the way that I and so many others my age viewed them growing up. They're toolboxes, full of ideas that can be directed to have a fun and memorable time. From Smash Melee and Brawl with their ability to have power scaling who would win fights thanks to their bonkers rosters, to Pokemon with its thousands of different team compositions, acting almost like an extension of a trainer's personality, their likes and dislikes, even down to Mario Strikers, resting all of its fun on its mechanics. Their games are most often defined by how you want to play them. That's always been my explanation for the Nintendo equals good gameplay discussion that begins and ends with that statement. These games hold up under a variety of player-imposed rules, settings, and really, methods of expression. It's the reason we see something like the Pokemon Nuzlocke runs become so popular. This experimentation or expression that people historically project onto major Nintendo games and franchises that give them this timeless or universally fun gameplay forward quality has always been there and is still there today. Only now, games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Odyssey, Donkey Kong Bonanza, or Mario Kart World make it part of their identity. Structurally, more than ever, the games lend themselves to this type of playstyle. But honestly, Breath of the Wild wasn't even the first game to embrace this. I think the actual first domino for this modern age of Nintendo that began this idea that the games are shallow now or lacking compared to the good old days is Super Mario Maker. One could argue a Link Between Worlds cracked things open in regard to letting player choice take a larger focus in a game's structure, but every aspect of the scrutiny levied against modern Nintendo design choices being lesser than the ones the vocal fans liked and want to go back to can be traced back to this Wii U game. Super Mario Maker puts the responsibility of finding fun in the hands of the player. They provide the building blocks of fun, they try to make the process of building fun itself, and what follows is a variety of ways in which players express themselves through play. Whether that's in orchestrating musical arrangements for a level, designing brutally crushing Kaizo levels for their friends, or even producing one of the thousands and thousands of videos that exist of content creators playing and reacting to fan-made levels, it's all expression. Mario Maker is a game that is also a tool. But does this make it any less of a Mario game? Its purpose is to facilitate fun socially among friends in the same house or across the world, no different than Mario Bros. 3 or Super Mario World. It features flagpoles, Koopas to stomp, Bowser, and all of Mario's friends. But because there's no story or campaign to complete in the traditional sense, real Mario fans felt abandoned, thought it was cute, but wanted something that was actually Mario. They felt it wasn't their place to seek out a good experience. Nintendo should have made them one. And they just went back to replaying the same Mario games they always play. Mario Maker and this disconnect that real longtime fans felt towards it is really applicable to every single big modern Nintendo game. Mario Odyssey wants players to feel joy in their jumping, to test their skills, to reach secret areas for the sake of experimenting with the movement and abilities Mario has been given as you explore a wondrous world. I could say the exact same thing about Mario 64 or Mario Galaxy. The difference? Mario Odyssey is stuffed full of rewards, so depending on how you play, no two players will find the same moons in the same order and move on to the next kingdom at the same time. You could get all the low-hanging moons and then you'll be gone in a flash from one kingdom to the next, maybe with a big set piece under your belt, but you're not railroaded into 7 stars per level that make you progress through the game in one specific way. Mario Odyssey is a journey that is paced and guided largely by the person playing it. But because of that, as time has gone on, Mario Odyssey has grown this reputation as being less memorable, or for the completionist, it's less replayable because of all the moons that you have to find. Now, again, another question. Is a game supposed to serve the player while playing it to make their experience the best possible, or serve the memory the game will become years later? This question, I think, gives a greater insight to the real Nintendo fan TM. The other aspect that is so heavily tied to Nintendo and Nintendo games because of the fanbase is nostalgia. In turn, so much of the conversation in the Nintendo canon relies on what a game could become, how a game will live after its release, if it will be memorable. We need to give it enough time before we really respect it, rather than meeting the game on its own terms or in the context of itself or what it's doing. To this vocal group, the sin of a game not being able to become immediately iconic or nostalgic undoes everything a game excels at in the action of playing it. To this fan, Mario Odyssey, based on how it is made to exist as a player-driven experience, can never be put on the same pedestal as these memorable, structured video games, even if it looks to deliver the same joys as Mario Galaxy or 64. It can't be as good as them. Because with the idea that Mario Odyssey and modern Nintendo games are more like tools or sandboxes for players to derive their own fun from, their own path through, the traditional communal nostalgia born out of Nintendo games has kind of disappeared. The iconic is only iconic because it was a shared experience everybody could reference as time went on. Hey Listen being annoying, Zubats in caves, we all raced Koopa the Quick, we all fought King Babam, we all found the secret slide. But today, in your journey through Mario Odyssey, you likely found many different moons than I did to move my adventure forward. I don't remember many specific moons in Mario Odyssey beyond general set pieces or jumping combos I did to capture one, but I remember locations from each kingdom and how it feels to play the game. With Mario 64, in addition to remembering parts of levels and how it feels to play, I can also recall almost every star that I collected. So to many Nintendo fans, clearly the better game is Mario 64. And I'm not here to say which one is better or not, but I will give my answer to my initial question regarding Mario. I love Mario because of how it feels to exist in Mario games. The satisfaction I get from just landing a triple jump or leaping off of a wall is enough to make me want to see what the game has to offer. Not because there are 120 shiny objects for me to collect. Looking over to Zelda, the modern age games look to deliver on the same promise that Miyamoto set out to fulfill with the first game. The Legend of Zelda was a crafted sandbox in which players feel the spirit of adventure by exploring their curiosity for the magic and mundane around them. You are meant to experiment and interact with the environment around you, stumbling into the next step of your adventure. This fantastical feeling is alive and well in the modern Zelda games. Yes, there's no dungeon on top of a mountain to fulfill this feeling of adventurous thrills with puzzles and bosses, because you get this feeling of adventure from climbing. The mountain is the puzzle, and will show you a host of other things for you to figure out. This longing for the Zelda formula over anything else that a game could be doing to deliver a similar feeling also extends to the stories. They are underwhelming, but they're underwhelming in a way that I've always kind of felt Zelda stories are underwhelming. Not bad, nowhere close to it, but they're never really more than a vibe that I'm either kind of or extremely into. If anything, it's a general framework to give more meaning to the world I'm adventuring through. There's room for improvement in how Zelda tackles its story, do not get me wrong, and I do still love the characters, but in the moment, and looking back on these Switch-era games, or even a game like Twilight Princess, a specific cutscene isn't what I love and think about with these games compared to the adventures that I found myself in. Now, this experience of finding your own fun in a modern Nintendo game isn't just limited to Mario or Zelda. By and large, I feel this exact same way towards the Mario sports games as well. Yeah, I have a preference for Strikers on the GameCube because I played that one more, but I don't think it's a drastically better game than Battle League. Both of the games exist to be fun because of who I play them with, not because one has a greater single-player offering than the other, or one is lacking content to see. With how I enjoy them, either playing in solo, cooperative, or versus settings, Nintendo games have always been tools to me to play with, or more accurately, toys. Nintendo began as a toy company, and the imagination they both spark and ask for out of the player to enhance their own experience with their games is, I think, a byproduct of that. Today, games like Donkey Kong Bonanza or Mario Kart World, even the Zeldas, put so much into letting players customize their experience. A lot of that down to their look. It makes sense when you think of these games as worlds to have fun in and mess around with, rather than checklists to conquer, optimally complete, and boost up a non-existent gamer score in an efficient way. When I played Donkey Kong Bonanza this summer, when I reached the resort level, I decided to change up my character's looks. I gave DK and Pauline matching beachwear, and even spent like half an hour trying to chunk jump a surfboard-looking piece of material and grabbing a perfect photo of them loving life on this adventure, taking a tropical retreat together. Not only because it would be cute, but after the intense layers I just played through with them back to back, it felt natural that they'd want to unwind in this haven of relaxation. I don't know. Most modern Nintendo games that I have played provide countless ways to spin up these moments of role-playing in their worlds and create these mini stories for yourself. If the choice to engage with them in this way is, like level-to-level progression, player-driven, and a big takeaway from a vocal group of these longtime, real, old-school, traditional, I miss the old days Nintendo fans, is that these games either aren't memorable or really aren't able to become easily referential and nostalgic because of it. Is this maybe your own doing? I don't even mean to say this in an accusatory way or anything. I think it makes a lot of sense that a certain sect of the group that was raised on the Zelda formula came to see the appeal of Zelda as that structure, the formula itself, rather than everything around it. I still really love many of the games that use the Zelda formula, just like I love games with 120 stars for Mario to find, because I love existing in these worlds that feel expressive the way Nintendo games often do. Not because I love completing tasks on a checklist the way I did the last time or the time before that. Now let me be clear, I fully understand the notion that getting out what you put in is something that straight up does not interest a sizable amount of people, especially when it comes to their video games. There are folks that just play games because of the checklist. With the Horizon or Assassin's Creed, they want a clear set of goals to conquer, so they feel like they accomplished something and didn't waste their time or, more often, their money. This is why I think Mario Kart World was such a target coming in with its $80 price tag. Metrics about the price of video games aside, I think there's something deeper here. The game is massive. It's incredibly fun to play. It features expressive characters with a variety of costumes, different cars, characters, and general stuff to unlock and play the way you want to play. But what does it offer the completionist? Where's the structure that forces them to go find all the P-switches, the stickers, the hidden coins? What does it do for the gamer that needs to feel like they accomplished something based on the money they put in? Where's the story mode? Clearly, the potential to have fun for many is not enough to warrant $80 or a console purchase. I love Mario Kart World. I love it the same way that I loved No Man's Sky when that game launched. The developers provided a beautiful landscape with a simple goal: get in your vehicle and go. Just like I loved flying through the atmospheric, open, some may say empty space of No Man's Sky to just vibe out and exist in this artistic achievement, I love throwing Mario Kart World on the TV after work or on a rainy morning to just drive, see a world that was crafted so that I could drive through it, and think about the implications of like the Yoshi burger stands and what that means to the Mushroom Kingdom. So do the vocal fans who think Nintendo has changed have a point with their criticisms? Yes, when it comes to games like Mario, Donkey Kong, or Zelda, there is now a difference in how they are structured, how they're packaged, and how players will be spending their time in them. Although, I don't think it is inauthentic to the core of why people love these games and fell in love with them over the years. Breath of the Wild, for my money, is every bit a whimsy-filled Zelda adventure game as A Link Between Worlds, A Link to the Past, or Majora's Mask are. Mario sports games, really, only fun for more than an hour if you're playing with friends, just like they were in the GameCube. Mario games are about feeling joy because of jumping through wondrous worlds. Does it purely come down to just perspective, expectations? Is it a general difference in how we all play our games? Are we just beginning to see a more clear line between the types of games that appeal to the Golden Age Super Nintendo generation, the Wii and Minecraft generation, and the up-and-coming iPad, Roblox, Fortnite generation coming to a head with the way that Nintendo's positioning themselves for the future? The real answer is probably somewhere in the middle of all those. But I'd love to know what you think. Have Nintendo games really changed drastically, or for the worse even? And if you really miss that more rigid Nintendo structure, I'm speaking to you, the Nintendo fan that hates Breath of the Wild, thinks Mario Odyssey can never be as good as the old days, and doesn't like Donkey Kong Bonanza because you have to find your own fun. The good news is the company still makes games with a very heavy story focus, a linear path through a world to deliver a narrative, with tons of optional quests and satisfying progression. You might just not be happy with the franchises that these games are in. Let me know if I'm off the mark, if you agree, or why you disagree and Nintendo has really lost their magic. As always, thank you so much for watching, and for more episodes of Rantable, be sure to stay tuned to Game Rant.